universe hasn't abandoned you. It's redirecting you. Intro, you're not lost. You're just not where you thought you'd be. Let's start with a simple truth nobody ever tells you when you're at your lowest. Feeling lost doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean your life is off track. It doesn't mean you've failed, missed your purpose, or taken the wrong path. It just means you're in between. Between what was and what will be. Between an old self that no longer fits and a new self still becoming. And that space, that awkward, quiet, uncertain space, that's where real transformation begins. But you know what the hardest part is? It's not the change. It's the silence that comes before it. The stillness that makes you question everything. The way no one really understands what you're going through, not even you. Because there's no GPS for your soul. No step-by-step for rebuilding your identity. No app that tells you, don't worry, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And so you panic, you grasp. You wonder if this numbness means something is wrong with you. But here's something I want to offer you gently. Maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're finally free. Free from illusions. Free from the noise. Free from the lies you were told about what a good life should look like. Because sometimes life has to strip away everything that's not really you, just so you can meet the person you were always meant to become. So if you're reading this with a heavy heart, wondering where your joy went, wondering if you've missed your chance, stay with me. Not because I have the answers, but because I know what this feeling really is. And more importantly, I know the signs that mean it's not the end. In fact, it might be your true beginning. Sign 1. You feel disconnected from everyone, but more in tune with yourself. There's this strange stage in growth where you stop fitting in, not in an obvious way. You still show up, you still smile, you still go to work, respond to messages, say the polite things. But beneath it all, there's a quiet distance growing between you and, well, everything. You start noticing how shallow the conversations are, how draining certain people feel, how tired you are of pretending you're okay when you're not. You begin choosing silence over small talk, solitude over stimulation, and it's not because you're giving up, it's because you're tuning in. You're coming home to yourself. The irony is, people might think you're pulling away. They might say, you've changed, or ask why you're not fun anymore. But what they don't understand is that for the first time, you're starting to listen to your inner voice, to your real needs, to the part of you that got buried under years of people-pleasing, overworking, and self-neglect. This disconnection isn't a breakdown, it's a detox. You're not lonely, you're refining. You're not cold, you're clear. And in that space, the most important realization of all starts to surface. You don't need the noise to feel whole anymore. You just need your own attention. Sign 2. You're questioning everything you once believed. There's something terrifying about having your worldview crack open. Things you once accepted without question now feel shaky. Ideas you swore by suddenly don't make sense. People you once admired seem different, less golden, more human. You ask yourself, why did I believe that? Why did I think I needed that to be happy? Who am I without those labels? And you know what? That's not confusion. That's awakening. The things you're questioning aren't truth. They're programming. The version of life you were sold. The version of success you were told to chase. The old beliefs you inherited, absorbed or adopted just to survive. And now, you're done surviving. You're beginning to want truth, not comfort. Depth, not approval. Real meaning, not external validation. Buddhist philosophy says the path to awakening often begins with dukkha, the dissatisfaction or suffering that comes when life no longer aligns with your spirit. That's what this is. It's the friction of your soul outgrowing your story. And while it might feel like you're falling apart, what's really happening is that you're falling through illusion toward something real. Sign 3. You can no longer tolerate what you used to accept. You know this one. The friend you kept around even though they drained you. the job that slowly ate away at your peace, but you stayed because at least it pays well? The patterns that once made you feel safe now make you feel sick? Yeah, you can't do it anymore. And it's not because you're becoming negative or impatient or sensitive. It's because your threshold for self-betrayal has dropped to zero. You've grown. You're awake now. And what used to feel normal now feels unbearable. You stop apologizing for saying no. You stop trying to save people who refuse to grow. You stop explaining yourself to those who only hear what they want to hear. There's a line in Buddhist thought that says, "Let go or be dragged." And you finally get it. This intolerance, this fire in your belly when you even think about going back to your old ways, it's your soul refusing to shrink again. You've tasted peace. You've felt clarity. You've seen yourself through a new lens. And once that happens, there's no unseeing it. Sign 4. You're drawn to stillness, nature, or solitude. Let me guess, lately you crave quiet, not just silence, but stillness, something slower, deeper, older. You're not chasing distractions the way you used to. You'd rather spend time under the sky than scroll through chaos. You start noticing birdsong, sunlight, the way wind feels when you're actually paying attention. You're not retreating, you're returning. Because your nervous system is tired, your mind is overstimulated, and your soul, it just wants to breathe. In Buddhist monasteries, monks speak often of stilling the water, because only when the mind is calm can it reflect the truth clearly. You're starting to still your own waters, and even if you don't realize it, you're doing something incredibly rare in this world. You're no longer afraid of your own company. Sign 5. You start letting go of things without even trying. Have you ever looked around your life, at the people, the plans, the old goals, and thought, I just don't want this anymore, and I don't even know why? Not with anger, not with resentment, just a quiet realization that something you once held so tightly no longer feels worth the grip. Maybe you used to dream about climbing the corporate ladder. Now you crave peace more than promotions. Maybe that relationship that once made you feel seen now just feels like noise. Maybe you had all these plans for success, and now success looks nothing like that. And what's strange is you're not forcing yourself to move on. You're not angrily cutting things off. You're just done. It's like autumn. The leaves don't beg to stay on the tree. They don't resist the wind or question why the season's changing. They just fall, gently, naturally, when it's time. And maybe that's exactly what's happening in your life right now. You're not giving up. You're letting go, because you're no longer chasing what no longer feeds you, because you've reached a deeper knowing that doesn't need constant explanation, because something in you, call it intuition, soul, or just raw clarity, knows that holding on would cost more than walking away. The confusing part? It feels like you're losing, and that's what makes this sign so hard to trust. Letting go doesn't feel like peace at first. It feels like grief, like emptiness, like guilt for no longer wanting what you once begged the universe for. You look around and wonder, why can't I feel grateful for this anymore? Why am I not satisfied? What's wrong with me? But here's the thing most people never tell you. You're allowed to outgrow the dreams you once had. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to say, this was good for me then, but not anymore. Growth doesn't always look like reaching higher. Sometimes it looks like releasing what you were never meant to carry this long. Buddhism teaches, when the fruit is ripe, it falls. That line might sound simple, but it's everything. We live in a world that tells us to fight for everything. Hold on, push harder, grind, never let go. But in nature, growth is the opposite. Growth isn't aggressive, it's gentle. The tree doesn't cling to the fruit. It lets it go because something new needs to grow in its place. Maybe what you're feeling right now isn't disinterest, it's ripeness. Maybe your soul has matured past what your ego still tries to defend. Maybe this inner detachment is not numbness, but wisdom. You're shedding, not breaking. You know how snakes shed their skin when it gets too tight? They don't rip it off. They don't scream about it. They just slowly slither out of what no longer fits. Quietly, naturally, almost indifferently. That's what you're doing now, shedding the version of yourself that said, I have to prove my worth. I have to keep them happy. I have to keep chasing more. And as that skin peels off, you might feel raw, exposed, uncertain, but you're not dying. You're revealing what's underneath. A clearer version of you, a lighter version, one that doesn't have to carry the weight of shoulds anymore. Letting go doesn't always look like walking away. Sometimes letting go is quieter than we expect. It's not always about quitting the job or ending the relationship or moving to the mountains, though sometimes it is. Sometimes letting go looks like no longer reacting to the people who once triggered you, being okay with not explaining yourself, feeling nothing where once there was neediness, urgency, or emotional chaos. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's one of the strongest signs of inner peace, because the truth is, not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Sometimes it's just space being made for something truer. And here's the most beautiful part. You didn't force it. You didn't chase it. You didn't overthink it. It just happened. Your soul chose peace before your mind could overanalyze it. You started to trust the quiet no in your chest. You started to walk away before bitterness took root. You started to say, I don't need this anymore, not out of pride, but clarity. And that's not weakness. That's not confusion. That's not being lost. That's power. A kind of power so subtle, most people miss it when it shows up. But not you. You feel it. And if you do, if you've noticed yourself letting go of people, plans, and patterns that once defined you, that's your sign. You're not lost. You're aligned. You just haven't met the new version of yourself yet, but you will. And when you do, you'll look back at this season and whisper, thank you for ending, so I could begin. Sign 6. You begin to see patterns and signs everywhere. Have you ever had one of those moments where something small, something you might have once brushed off, suddenly feels important? A stranger says something that feels oddly familiar. A book falls off the shelf with a title that answers the very question you've been struggling with. You keep seeing the same numbers, symbols, or names over and over again, like the universe is nudging you, whispering, pay attention. You stop chalking everything up to coincidence. You start sensing a thread, subtle but undeniable, connecting your experiences. It's not madness. It's not wishful thinking. It's awareness. A deep, intuitive awakening that says, there's more to this than meets the eye. Your mind is shifting from logic to meaning. Now, don't get me wrong, logic is a wonderful thing, but there comes a point in your personal evolution where meaning starts to matter more than reason, not because you've lost your mind, but because you've found your soul, and your soul. It doesn't speak in spreadsheets or syllogisms. It speaks in symbols, in synchronicities, in gut feelings that defy rationality but feel absolutely right. Carl Jung called these synchronicities meaningful coincidences that seem too aligned to be random. You might say, I was just thinking about her and she texted me. This podcast said exactly what I needed to hear today. I don't know why, but something told me to go that way instead, and it changed everything. That's not just chance. That's resonance. You're finally tuned into something deeper than noise. Life is always speaking. You just stopped ignoring it. When we're too busy, too stressed, too disconnected, we miss the messages. The signs are still there. We just don't see them. Because let's be real, how can you notice divine timing when you're glued to a screen, sprinting from task to task, barely breathing between deadlines? But when life slows you down, when you're lost and everything feels quiet, strange, uncertain. That's when the signs start appearing, not because they weren't always there, but because your mind finally got quiet enough to hear them. It's like standing in a noisy train station until suddenly the crowd clears and you hear a soft voice calling your name. It was always there. You just weren't ready to receive it. Now you are. Buddhist wisdom: the mind creates patterns, but the soul interprets them. In Buddhist psychology, there's this idea that the mind is like a projector. It creates stories, it searches for patterns, it tries to make sense of everything. But here's the secret most people miss. It's not just about finding patterns. It's about how you respond to them. The patterns you're seeing now aren't meant to control you. They're meant to guide you. They're reminders, not of fate, but of alignment. When the outer world starts mirroring your inner changes, that's not illusion, that's integration. The synchronicities show up after you shift, not before, which means if you're seeing repeating numbers, you're waking up. If you're noticing recurring dreams or symbols, your subconscious is speaking. If you keep stumbling across the same message from different sources, life is echoing back what you're ready to hear. You're not becoming delusional, you're becoming aware. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, skeptics will say you're reading too much into things. They'll laugh when you say you felt something guiding you. They'll call it fantasy, superstition, projection. But here's what they don't know. When you've lived through enough pain, you stop needing proof. You start trusting what resonates. You learn to believe in quiet confirmations. You understand that your body knows things long before your mind catches up. And that inner compass, it's ancient. It's built into your nervous system. It's not spiritual fluff. It's survival, wisdom, and intuition braided into your DNA. You don't need to convince anyone. You just need to trust yourself, because the signs, they weren't meant for them. They were meant for you. The more you trust the signs, the more they appear. This part's wild. The moment you start following the subtle guidance, more shows up. Almost like the universe says, you're listening now? Great, let's go deeper. You meet people who open doors you didn't know existed. You stumble into conversations that shift your thinking. You feel drawn to a place, a practice, a book, and it changes something in you forever. It feels magical, but it's not magic, it's alignment. You're no longer chasing what doesn't want you. You're no longer forcing what's not meant. You're letting life unfold and watching as everything begins to click. Even the hard things, even the heartbreaks. You start to say, so that's why it had to happen. Not because you like the pain, but because now you can see the purpose behind it. So if you're seeing signs everywhere, don't doubt it, don't brush it off. Don't tell yourself you're just being emotional. Pay attention, because maybe that song you heard 3 times this week is trying to tell you something. Maybe that dream you keep having isn't random, it's a message. Maybe that weird feeling in your gut is your soul saying, turn here. You don't need to understand it fully, you just need to notice. Because once you do, the path begins to reveal itself. And the irony, you'll realize you were never lost. You were just deaf to the signs. But now the silence is loud. The patterns are clear. And something in you whispers, this way. Sign 7. You feel a deep calm in the middle of your chaos. Let's be honest, most of us aren't strangers to chaos. We've lived through the unpredictable, the unfair, the overwhelming. We've faced heartbreaks we didn't see coming, losses that didn't ask for permission, and seasons of life where nothing made sense and everything felt out of control. But then something strange starts to happen. One day, in the middle of all that noise, you don't panic the way you used to. You're still surrounded by uncertainty, but somehow you're still. There's pain, but it doesn't consume you. There's stress, but you're not collapsing under it. Instead, something inside you whispers, it's okay, you've been here before. And for the first time, you believe it. This is not numbness, it's evolution. Let's clear something up right away. This isn't denial. It's not shutting down. It's not pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's wisdom. The kind that's been earned through fire. The kind that only shows up when you've survived enough storms to realize that the sky doesn't stay dark forever. This calm, it's the peace that comes after you stop trying to control everything. You stop gripping the wheel. You stop forcing people to understand you. You stop trying to fix the world before fixing your breath. And in that surrender, you don't feel small. You feel strong. You feel free. You've stopped reacting. Now you're responding. There's a beautiful shift that happens when your nervous system finally catches up to your growth. You stop living in fight or flight. You stop flinching at every change. You stop needing to explain yourself every time something falls apart. Instead of screaming at the fire, you learn to let it burn what needs to go. Instead of begging the universe for answers, you sit in silence and feel the wisdom unfolding in your chest. You don't need everything to be perfect anymore, because perfection isn't the point. Presence is, and you're finally able to hold yourself through the chaos without losing your center. Buddhism. Peace comes not when things settle, but when you settle within. There's a common misconception that peace is what happens after life calms down, after the debt is paid, after the relationship is healed, after the diagnosis is gone, after the career is on track. But the truth is, that day may never come. And even if it does, something else will take its place. Peace isn't about escaping chaos. It's about transcending it. Buddhist teachings often refer to this as non-attachment, but not in the cold, emotionless way people assume. It's not about being indifferent. It's about not being enslaved by what happens around you. You feel everything, but you're not ruled by it. You hurt, but you don't collapse. You face the storm, but you're rooted like a tree. And that is the real meaning of inner strength. You don't chase peace anymore. You choose it. There's this quiet moment in your growth where you realize you have the power to not participate in every emotional fire. You don't have to defend yourself against every insult. You don't have to respond to every drama. You don't have to explain your soul to people committed to misunderstanding it. You can just breathe, walk away, stand in your own energy, and let things pass through you. And that moment, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, no one applauds it, but it's sacred because it's the day you choose peace over power, stillness over ego, alignment over reaction. This calm might confuse people. Let it. Here's something you need to know. When you stop reacting the way you used to, people won't always understand. They might say you've changed, that you've become distant, detached, cold. They might even try to poke at you just to see if they can bring the old you back, the one who used to explain, argue, people please, break down. Let them wonder. You don't owe your triggers to anyone. You don't owe your peace as proof of your love. You don't owe access to the version of you that used to bleed just to make other people comfortable. You've earned this stillness, and the ones meant for you, they'll feel it too. They'll meet you in that calm, without needing to shatter it. Here's the truth. You're not lost. You're found. If you're feeling this steady, grounded calm, even while your world is messy, trust it. It means you're no longer identifying with your pain. You're no longer clinging to temporary highs or toxic cycles. You're no longer looking for peace out there. You've realized you are the peace, and no matter how chaotic life gets, no one can take that from you. You've become the eye in the storm, the soft light in the middle of the noise, the one who no longer breaks every time something ends. You're not numb, you're anchored. And that's not a sign of being lost. That's the clearest sign of all. You're finally home. You were never lost. You were becoming. Let's be honest, life doesn't come with a map. And even if it did, half the time the landmarks would be mislabeled and the roads under construction. So if you've ever sat in silence wondering, where am I going? Or why do I feel so behind? Breathe. You're not behind. You're not broken, and you're definitely not lost. The signs we talked about, feeling detached from shallow noise, longing for meaning, craving solitude, shedding people, questioning everything, being unusually still, and sensing a quiet inner shift, aren't red flags. They're milestones. You're not spiraling, you're shedding, you're not confused, you're becoming clear, you're not stuck, you're being rerouted. Every spiritual transformation, every mental breakthrough, every season of becoming starts with a moment when everything feels off. When the old rules stop making sense, when the life you built doesn't fit the person you're becoming. That's not failure, that's evolution. You know what's ironic? The world tells you you're lost when you stop conforming, when you stop chasing the job title, the relationship, the hustle culture, the applause. But what if that's the moment you're finally on the right path? Because real peace doesn't look loud. Healing isn't flashy. Wisdom doesn't yell. It moves slowly, like dawn through a window, like fog lifting off the road. One moment you're unsure, the next, something in your chest relaxes. You may not have all the answers yet, but you've stopped needing them. That's clarity. So if you're feeling the weight of the unknown, don't rush to escape it. Let it shape you. If you're walking alone right now, keep going. That's where the soul grows. If you're doubting yourself, take comfort in this. The deepest transformations rarely make sense until after the fact. You're not lost. You're in the space between stories. And that space, my friend, is sacred. Let it unfold. Let it be unclear. Let it teach you. Because sometimes the journey isn't about finding a destination. Sometimes it's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be.